Hello, everyone. Welcome. And we're so thrilled to have you join us for our third program of this season. My name is Lauren Drapala. I'm the Director of Programs at Historic Preservation Education Foundation, and we'll be talking today about debunking myths about preservation trades programs and lessons learned with Neela Wickremesinghe and Natalie Henshaw, which I'm thrilled to have these two in the virtual space to talk about these issues because it's something that they have thought about a lot in their careers and that we've thought about collectively in the work that HPF does. So to get us started, I wanted to give a little overview of our organization. We were founded in 1986, and we have been involved with a number of different educational pursuits since our founding, and we're now celebrating our 40th anniversary. So to mark some of the work that we've done, we've offered two grant programs, the Partners in Training program, which we have some grant recipients on the call today, representing that program at Historic Hawaii Foundation, at Historic Ithaca, and at Repurpose Savannah. So it's great to have you here with us as part of that. This program helps support educational efforts around training opportunities and often it's been around technical training opportunities. So trades programs have been a really active part of this grant. Our other grant program is Partners in Documentation, which helps support HABS level documentation of historic sites and landscapes. We have an upcoming program on that I will talk about in the next slide. And in addition to that work, we also convene programs such as this one and national conferences such as our recent Preserving the Recent Past 4 conference in Boston last March. And we regularly provide a continuing education credits through our website. We offer free National Park Service preservation brief quizzes, which you can check out here. And a lot of our programming moving forward is all aimed at providing free AAA continuing education. So if you're an architect that's looking for your end of the year credits, come and see us. We have opportunities. As I mentioned before, we have an upcoming program on April 21st on our Partners in Documentation grant program. It's a spotlight on a recent grantee at Ball State University, which won the illustrious Charles Peterson Prize from the National Park Service. So Jonathan Spodek from that program will be talking with us about this. And if you're interested in that program, please do register for that as well. And with that, I would like to get into our program tonight. So we are thrilled to be able to welcome Natalie Henshaw, the Director of Historic Trades at the Campaign for Historic Trades, and Neela Wickremesinghe, the Robert A. and Elizabeth Roan Jeff Director of Restoration and Preservation at Greenwood National Historic Landmark. And I'm going to hand it over to them to talk a little bit about their program before we get into our myth busting. And so a little bit about how this is going to work. You will see that we have a chat function available. Feel free to introduce yourself and we should also, can you see a Q&A function on your end as well? Or is it just the chat? See Q&A? Q&A. Okay. So please make sure to introduce any questions you might have as we're talking in the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that throughout the event, and at the end we will take it all together and have a group discussion about what we've discussed today. So with no further ado, I will hand things over to Natalie to introduce her program and initiative.
Thank you, Lauren. You already pretty well introduced me and my name and all that. So I'll just talk about the campaign. The Campaign for Historic Trades is a national workforce development program, and our mission is to expand and strengthen careers in the historic trades. I'll talk a little bit about myself too, because it goes into some of the myth busting that we're talking through. We don't do everything at the campaign, but we're involved in a lot. A lot of it's informed by my history in trades education. I started out at Savannah Technical College. I did their 2-year program Then I worked lots of different types of jobs in the in between. Worked as an intern at National Park Service, lots of under the table work, seasonal, 1099, private contractors. I worked with HistoriCorps where we led volunteer projects. I helped run Lamar Community College's program, came back and taught at Savannah Tech as an adjunct, and then started my own business and tried hiring people and worked with Youth Corps in a lot of different aspects. So I've had this kind of gamut of different types of training programs and educational delivery systems for trades. At the campaign, our focus is really on apprenticeships and apprenticeship development and a lot of the infrastructure that goes into that, which touches on a lot of these pieces. So hopefully we'll dive into more specifics as we go through the myth busting. But I guess in summary to the campaign, we work nationally and we work on a lot of different aspects, but we are based in Preservation, Maryland. It's statewide, but we're not limited just to Maryland in our work. And it's made possible through a partnership that we have with the National Park Service's Historic Preservation Training Center. And I'd say, our mission is expand and strengthen careers in the historic trades, but our vision, what we would close down if we achieved type of thing, is for all tradespeople to have clear career pathways, accessible education, and secure employment. So yeah, that's the very, very short version of the campaign.
Hi there, I'm next. Tag. My name is Neela Wickremesinghe, and I'm the Director of Restoration and Preservation at Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. And I've been in the workforce development sphere for almost 10 years now, since I've been working at Greenwood. But again, have come to preservation through a master's program and then working as a preservation conservation technician for a few years and working on site, working as an architectural historian for a little while too, before I kind of found my footing and figured out what I wanted to do next as a conservator. So at Greenwood, we do a very small but mighty workforce development program, and we're able to the one that I teach, we're able to bring students in, and what I like to do is make our project as site ready or give them like the most real experience. It is real, obviously, but I always want to work up on scaffolding. I want to make sure that we're actually doing the work ourselves. We're getting trained by folks that are doing the work in the field, and I'm bringing people in who work in the field throughout the program so they can meet people that work in construction in general and work in the preservation trades more broadly, so that they just can sort of open their mind a little bit more to what preservation is, what restoration is, what conservation is, all these words that we use quite fluidly. I want to make sure that the students that I have are also become well versed in talking about preservation as an action rather than just as an ethos. I often tell them that I am not a religious person, but this is my sort of lot in life is to be an evangelist about historic preservation. And so if they're getting taught by me, they're going to learn that no matter what. But I also am very invested in finding them jobs if they want them after that. And it is not my forte, but it's becoming it. I have learned how to become more of an advocate for students. And that's also going into some of the myth busting, et cetera, that we'll get into about what it entails to advocate for a student or to see a student succeed. And that might be different for different folks. But specifically, the program at Greenwood is under the umbrella of the World Monuments Fund's Bridge to Craft Careers program, which has been going on since 2015, since it began at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. And since expanding to Greenwood, they've also expanded to some other cemeteries in Kentucky, and they're hoping to launch a program in New Orleans this spring. So through the program, folks are able to earn their 30-hour OSHA, their supported scaffold user card, their 16-hour suspended scaffolding card, their flagger certification, some stone patching certifications, and other drug and alcohol awareness training that is a great add-on for young professionals as they get into the field. And really, they're able to get given the information that they need if they would want to go on in the trades. And we are also a direct entry program for DC9, that's the Painters Union in New York.
Great. Thank you both so much for those introductions. I should say that my role in this conversation is as a grant maker. So I receive a lot of applications for nonprofits that are interested in starting programs like this, and increasingly over the past couple of years have tried to connect the dots between different organizations to try and share resources. So these myths are things that have come up repeatedly through reviewing applications, and each one of us has kind of encountered this through the work that we've been doing. So we have 6 of them. Let's start with number 1. The first myth: get students working with their hands, and they will get the experience they need. So why is this a myth? Let's get into it.
Um, I'll, it actually just reminded me of a personal anecdote as a student, and then I can flip it to how we view it on this like administrative and structural side. We often did a lot of projects when I was at Savannah Tech. You know, people in the community are like, hey, we have this project to come work on. And I remember there was one on a Saturday we were going out to work on roofing, and I hadn't learned anything about roofing. It was like my first 6 months was one of 4 students that showed up out of, a class of 20. And one of the students had been a roofer before. I was lifting these asphalt shingle bundles up on the roof. I was like, okay, what can I do next? And he said, just sit there and look pretty. And I was so upset by that. I had been working late that last night, literally gotten no sleep to come out on a Saturday and learn. And yes, I was working with my hands, but the learning opportunity was not provided to me. And when I told my instructor, they just kind of shrugged. And I cannot like that was a moment I almost quit and left
Yeah.
because it felt so terrible. Just because there's stuff to do does not mean people are learning. And when you're in charge of programs, you have to be very intentional in how you structure the learning and making sure that people have a fair chance at the learning too. And I say that it's very difficult to do that. It's a lot of work, and you have to have people who are trained in it as well. Um, we actually have an instructor training program that really gets to this of it's not just doing the thing, it's not just using the hands. Like even if you get into it, you have to build in that time of setting the expectations, giving the right information to start. I shouldn't have been up on the roof with no knowledge of how to lay asphalt. Like there's nothing that we did beforehand, right? And even afterwards, it's really important to build in this reflection time so students can think about what they did, think about the challenges, the successes, what they want to know more afterwards. So you have to craft a very intentional space for people to get to learning that, frankly, like a lot of employers want that part, that critical thinking part, more so than just can you use the hammer? Do you know how to use the asphalt or like lay down the asphalt shingles? Um, yeah, I'm curious from your side and how you structure and what I said that resonates with you too, or what's different.
Yes, I think that from the instructor point of view, have become extremely aware of the minutia of the day, of the details of every single step. I try to not reinvent the wheel so much when I'm planning my cohort because I have to plan out, by the 10-minute block, what everyone is doing because I have also become very aware of the changing patterns of different students. Just because, often when was just finished doing interviews for this program, and many people tell me, oh, I really like working with my hands, and that's great. And when I hear that, I immediately say, what are you doing right now to support that statement? Because sometimes the answer is I'm not doing anything, and that's okay. But there's this idea, or from a student's point of view, that I just need to get out there working with my hands, or someone just has to show me how to do it, and I'm going to be great at this. You could also be reading books and watching videos. You could totally do that, right? There are things to do before getting your hands dirty, and I always sort of urge my students to actually be a student in the full way. Just because you're doing a hands-on training doesn't mean that you're not having to do your homework. And that is a big myth that I'm sure we'll continue to talk about. But I think also sometimes I do get students out to actually do the thing that they told me that they want to do, and they're not motivated to do it, which is part for me what this sort of number one kind of gets to the root at. That sometimes when you're there and you're ready, I do have students that need a lot of motivation to get started, and that's okay. Sometimes the starting is the hardest part. So really being intentional about what I want students to learn from that moment, and being very um, I I try to almost use this idea of like you see one, you do one, and then you teach one, right? So that's a really good model for me. My parents are physicians, and that's what they do in medical school. So that's the thing that I've kind of thought of in my mind. And I try to get my students to actually become teachers to their cohort, so that they don't have time to get bored. So I think that getting that experience is important, but they have to be able to talk about what they're doing too. And then it's not just for other people's edification, it's for their own self. The more they talk about what they're doing, the more that they can actually remind themselves, oh, yeah, this is how I do it.
I love that. Yeah. And I've even noticed myself, the most I've learned is once I had to become a teacher and do exactly what you're saying. Once you had to process and communicate and even just try and change how you communicate about your understanding for different people and where they're at, you learn so much more than if you're just trying to pick it up yourself too. I love that you do that.
I love about that point too that it's about agency, right? Natalie, your story in the beginning is very much feeling like a pawn in some kind of project that you don't have access to. And Neela, what strikes me about the way that you approach teaching is that it's about providing a sense of yourself and a responsibility, right? It's not just about sort of passively getting this information. You want your students to be engaged in the actual teaching process. It's it's crucial. Um, it's we have some photos. Neil, I don't know if you want to say anything about these photos from your Bridge to Craft Careers
Sure.
program here.
So I think the best one to talk about is maybe the one with the brick wall. So the brick wall is a sort of sacrificial wall that I have chosen, because I don't want someone's first experience with tools, any kind of tools, to be on a very important thing. Um, it is crazy to me that sometimes we think that the best place for a student that has no experience with anything is like a really important historic structure. Like, no, like if you think that if you are the steward of a historic place, it is not okay to think that someone with absolutely no experience should like come on down. Like, no, like a lot of people think that, and they thought that about Greenwood, and we got in, and it's I think why my job exists now, because to try to be like, please don't do that. But I think what you can do is create safe places within a historic site to practice, to make mistakes, to, to learn how to recoup from a mistake. And it's something that I tell all my students, I have to be able to fix any mistake that you make. That's what I have to say and like and promise and swear. So I have to sort of see what I got to make sure that I can keep up that end of the bargain. So the brick wall that you see is the wall that I have them remove mortar and reinstall mortar for a whole week, again and again and again. And we don't touch a grinder until like Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is all hand tools, and it's just a lot of this, right? And it's like, that's what it is. And I'm there with them. I do, and that's another thing. I do everything I ask them to do, because I also think it's important to do that I'm never going to ask someone to do something I can't do. Um, and so making sure you have a safe place for people to work within our historic areas first, so they get a little confidence. And then we move to the historic 1852 mausoleum. Yeah, this is just some other action shots of my students pointing. I like when they sit all in a row and then I can take a really nice photograph of them. But another thing is just also we do all of our safety training before I get them on any scaffolding, of course, because I think it's important to scare them properly into doing the right thing, at least at the beginning. And that goes back to describing the kind of job site that I want to create is a super safe job site, not just for our own safety, but so that when they get on another job site, they can see, they can easily identify something that is not right and not safe. And they have a gut instinct that says, this is not okay.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. Myth number 2, organizations can build a sustainable apprenticeship program with a one-time 100K grant. This is what a lot of people believe, right? They apply to these programs thinking like, okay, we got this pot of money now we're gonna get people into the trades. Why is this wrong?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 100K is both a lot of money and no money at the same time. And the same can be said for $1 million, depending on the scale of your program. Um, Neela, you run yours on a one-time 100K grant, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's very weird to talk about some of this and even just the context of what I do, because I feel that like little and lot at the same time. But I will say that at least from research, I found a 2008 or 2009 study about pre-apprenticeship programs in construction. And the smallest budget was at least $250,000 annually for those pre-apprenticeship programs. And that's in 2008 dollars, whatever the inflation is now. It's a little horrifying. I don't necessarily want to know, but like it's going to be more than $250,000, right? So it really does depend on the scale of what you're wanting to do. If you want any type of recurring workforce development program that really prepares people to enter a job, this is going to be enough to like be kickoff funding and a feasibility study, but it is not enough to necessarily start and maintain a program. It's enough to get you going to then go find more funding or create your budget system. And that's just because if you want to start a program, a recurring one, you really have to think more beyond just a one-time funding influx. Um, these are high skill jobs with high liability, high costs, high cost to get instructors out, lots of staff oversight to make sure that their training is viable. It takes a lot to run them. It takes a lot to run them. Um, yeah, Neela, what's your insights on this myth?
Yeah, I mean, for us, thankfully, Greenwood takes on a lot of the cost because they dedicate a lot of my time and my staff's time. It's almost 5 months out of the year. And when you're working in the Northeast and you only have 8 months really of outside time, it's a lot to dedicate to a program that is 10 weeks long. But once it happens, it flies by. But the time that it takes to plan it is way more, obviously. So, always be thinking in sort of the time and the talent and the treasure that it takes to get anything off the ground. So all of that can be boiled down to dollars and cents. Always be wary of someone trying to give you stuff for free or their time for free, even though it might be under the best intentions, because you want to be able to um, at least lead your students and say, we're compensating you for your time. It's a paid program for us. And that's a really important part of it, because we're trying to address a need within a population that's looking for employment. So I have to expect that they have responsibilities and they can't just take 3 months off. So I'm trying to, for us, I think actually the little grants actually help us so much because we're able to think about how we can get, you know, scaffold rental is $12,000, tools is $5,000, so if we can sort of diversify where we get that money from every year, it's really helpful. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like what you brought up too about offering for free. I think nonprofits in general, and especially preservation nonprofits, are so used to doing a lot with a little. And I think in some ways it's very laudable, but in other ways it can set us up for problems in the future. So there's a lot of times we're trying to work with sites on how to, bring training or workshops to them. And sometimes they don't understand the costs. And I start realizing that maybe they've done it before and somebody really like donated a lot of their time, like a volunteer donated their time to manage the outreach and registration, or the instructor gave them a really good deal, or the instructor brought all the tools and materials, or maybe they didn't actually have the right insurance for this event that they're hosting.
Right.
Did they actually go through the right permitting processes to get the work done and make sure they had the admin side to take care of that? There's a lot that goes into it, and you really have to think about that administrative side with these programs because not to beat it too hard, but like it can be quite a bit of administrative work to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So for myth number three, we have the idea that if you teach people the skills that they will get the jobs, that there's work to be had. All we need is more people that know how to do this.
Neela,
Yes.
do you want to take this one? Yeah.
Yes, I hope this is always the case, and many people present this to me. Sometimes we're in professional situations and everyone's like, "Oh, let me tell you about your job." And this is one of the things. They're like, if only we had, more skilled tradespeople, then we would get these jobs done. Yes, and also no. If we had more people wanting to support the kind of work that it takes to restore buildings and restore neighborhoods and um, put forward all of the beautiful preservation dreams that we all have, yes, but it is very, very dependent on what is the market. It's dependent on the success of historic tax credits. It's dependent on what city you might work in, or if your city or state is a organized labor place or not. So a lot of things go into whether or not restoration projects get off the ground. It's not just, oh, no one knows how to do stonemasonry anymore. Um, there are hundreds of people that work in restoration. In New York, there are thousands of people that work in restoration of huge buildings. We've just on a national scale, we've witnessed, the Michigan Central Station getting restored in Detroit. These big preservation projects, they happen everywhere. When the money is there, all of a sudden the projects happen. The tradespeople are hired, the work is done. Um, so people find a way, companies find a way to train people for a specific task if there's a need. So I think that yes, we need to teach the skills, but also we need to be smart in our own profession to lobby and to make sure that there is actually that our preservation dreams can come true. Because if no one wants to do these kinds of projects, then we won't have an arena to hire tradespeople to do any kind of construction work that has to do with restoration. Um, so yeah, that's the big number. Myth number three definitely is hitting home for me.
Yeah. And this is where, when we were talking about this in preparation, that overlap the difference of economic development and workforce development. And a lot of the times we try and approach economic development issues with workforce development solutions. And I mean, there is overlap, but they're not one and the same. And to your point, there are these big projects going on. There are people capable of doing it when there's the funding there. And even on a smaller scale, when I started up my business, it was very hard to figure out pricing because it was just myself. I'm like, what am I worth? Gets very existential, right? But reading through some, different business advice blogs and articles, it really came down to you have to charge the prices that make your business viable. Otherwise, you won't be in business. You have to make enough to earn a living. Otherwise, you're not going to exist and the service won't exist. And I kind of had to contend with, well, I have to raise my prices to that amount. And if there's no business at that price, then this isn't a viable business. It doesn't matter how many people want their windows restored in my city. if I can't make a living doing it, it's not going to happen, right? That business can't exist. I'm not going to work at a negative. I can't survive that way. So that's that economic and workforce side. But even I think everybody has experienced this. You can be as skilled as you can be in in a job or in a skill, right? You can be expert. That doesn't necessarily get you a job. You really need networking to know people, to have the right type of job skills. What are people looking for? Where to look for? There's a lot more in between that training and getting hired that takes some effort. Indeed is a crapshoot from what I hear from both ends
Yes.
of like, right? So there's so much on that in between that I think we have a lot of space to help people, a lot of space to make that connections. And I've been really seeing that when we talk to employers and talk to people looking for work, there's a huge gap in between and how do we get people connected? And it's not an easy task because it's different everywhere, but it's more to it than just get trained and be skillful and then you work.
Yeah.
As we move forward, we're there a common myth is that people run a historic site, they have buildings that are running into disrepair, and they say, let's bring in a bunch of students, and this will be a great way to get preservation work done on our site at a low cost. Tell us why this is wrong.
Sometimes something will cost you not in money, but in many different ways, like someone's personal safety, or the building safety, or the monument safety, or the safety of the program that you've invited to do the work. I think just going back to what I said before, I often say this to people when they ask me if I can just come to the cemetery and clean headstones. I said, imagine you went to the Brooklyn Museum and said, could I clean your paintings? And they look at me like I have three heads, but it's the same thing, right? It doesn't make any sense that the things that are so important and so precious should be cared for by those that are looking for an experience, yes, but the slowing down and the training is so important. I often say that we have to make sure that when you're doing a workforce development program, the training is the number one thing that you're working on. You're working on the development of the pre-apprentice. You're not hoping to get some cheap work done or work done in a quick manner. Nothing about it is efficient. It's not the most efficient way to restore a mausoleum. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. It takes a long time. I could do it quicker with just me and the two people on my crew. Um, but it is a fantastic opportunity to get people into a place that maybe they've never been before, to talk to them about what they're seeing with their eyes and what they can feel is happening. And there's a lot of things that a volunteer or a person new to the trades can do under some really important guidance and instruction. So it's not like, oh no, there's no place for it. Obviously, I'm here to say that there is a place for
Yeah.
it, but it is not a solution to, oh man, this wall is falling down. Let's see if we can get some students in here. Um, it's a combination of how can I expose this site to students that might have really good ideas and we haven't thought about it in the way that they might think about it. And what does this building have to tell us and tell students that we can learn from it in a very controlled way?
Yeah. I think one of the things that came out in our discussions preparing for this event was also how important it is to understand partnerships and the role that each partner within a project like this might take. And so if you're running a historic site and you have preservation needs that aren't being met, the idea of starting your own trades program probably isn't the best first step. Um, the idea is that there are, as we've mentioned, there are people that do this work, and very likely there are people in your community that can take portions of projects like this, and they might be willing to to exchange time to provide a service that might help them recruit for their own business. Or you don't know until you have those conversations. But I think when we see really successful grant applications, very often it's because we have a lot of great partners involved that can take on different aspects of running a trades program. So there might be an organization that's really interested in workforce development, and they might not have any interest in preservation, but they want to help communities that are looking for long-term employment. A historic site might be a really great partner for that, and it's finding the right projects that kind of meet the needs of what both organizations are looking for, or multiple partners outside of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
sure. Neela, to your cemetery comparison, we also get a lot of people that want work done on a historic site. And one of our first tasks is to figure out, great, do you have permission? Like, do you own or lease the site? And most people don't get that with cemeteries. They're like, oh, but it's dirty and it's a public place, so we can come clean it, right? I'm like, well, my analogy is like, well, imagine somebody just showing up in your driveway and cleaning your car. Like, yeah, that might be nice, but you're going to wonder, what are you using? What are you like? Are you using pine sol on my car? What kind of are you using? Like some metal to clean my car? And also, who are you and what are you doing in my yard? And why are you touching my car? Like, that's not yours. Like, you might have need your cart clean, but by some random person with materials and stuff you don't know about, that's not helpful. So a lot of the times with training programs and sites, like we have to figure out first, do you even have ownerships and rights to do this? Do you have a preservation plan before we can come in? We can't just start doing stuff. Even in cemetery cleaning, it's like, great, do you even know what plants you want to keep? We're not going to come in and do any landscaping or pulling of weeds until you know what you want to keep, because that matters too. And anytime it's trying to shortcut paying a contractor, it's not, you're going to have a bad time. Because, like you said, it's not cheaper. You're not going to get that quality work. It's not necessarily appropriate for a lot of introductory programs.
Yeah, and I think Lauren, what you said about the partnership is really important because you might not be able to host a 3 month program at your site, but you could do a really good 3 day experience with a partner that has been thoughtfully and responsibly doing a workforce development program for many years or a few seasons, a few summers, and become one of their host sites. And I think becoming a host site is really a good way to sort of dip your toe in. And then you can see, oh, did I like the way that that person ran a training? Did I like the insurance that they had to get? Did I like the school that they worked with or the instructor? Um, we work with the World Monuments Fund. They're the ones that came up with this idea, and they are true partners in this. It's really important for us to have them as a sort of guiding force, so I can also share what their mission is with my students who may not know much about international preservation. I think showing slides of the pyramids and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, people get that immediately. And having students think that they're a little bit aligned or in that track is really inspiring to see, like, this is the same kind of work, it's just in a different place. And we also work full time with a not for profit workforce development social services provider that allows to sort of assess and handle all the things that are not stone conservation. I can handle the stone conservation things, and they can help me handle everything else, which is really important.
I think that's so helpful to know, because I think, the idea of the program is so focused. It's the pictures are really enticing, and it's like, yeah, I want to see like
Yeah.
groups of people getting that experience, but there's so much behind the scenes that goes into that, and infrastructure that goes in to making that successful. So we have two more myths left to give people a sense for time. Myth number 5, a successful program is about producing preservation contractors. Now, some might think Yes, that's why we're doing this. But we wanted to expand on this idea. Why is there more to it than this?
I love to compare to other industries and see how we're doing things. And Neela, you already brought up, doctors. I think about that a lot in architects. Uh, there's not an expectation that somebody going to med school when they finish med school is going to start up a private practice, right? They do an internship, they do a residency, they work for a while, then maybe become a partner and then set up a private practice, right? There's a long line of learning, education, experience before it gets to that point because running a business is hard and it's a different set of skills that you have to learn on top of the thing you're already skillful at, your trade and your occupation. And same with architects. When you go to architecture school, you don't come out and found your own firm. You have to work at a firm for a number of hours and take licensure exams. Like there's still experience in education and evaluation tests to go before you can even call yourself an architect. And then you would probably work for a while before you set up your own firm, because again, that's a lot of work. So I feel like we're in this weird spot with the trades where there's a lot more value being placed on them than before. You know, there's not the stigmas of blue collar work that there was 20 years ago. But on the same token, there's a weird devaluation on them where they think, yeah, you go to a 6-month training program, you can just start a business. And if that was true, we wouldn't have a skill gap, right? Like if it was that easy, then there wouldn't be a problem. These are very high skill, high risk jobs that require years to become competent at. And then on top of that, you have to learn about a business. So it's a right path for some people, and I have seen it done well. I've seen a lot of programs that can help support them and give them some of those educational requirements, but it's not teach the thing and let them go forth. There's a lot more to it. And I think more successful programs are like Neela's, where there's a pipeline where they can then go to get that on the job experience.
Yeah, and for me, it's about having a diverse pipeline because not every student is ready for every opportunity. And to be very frank, not every opportunity is opening and welcome to all different types of students. That is just the landscape of we're still working in the construction sector, where I think the national average is like, maybe 3% are identified as women. Maybe it's a little higher in New York City because we have many, many programs that are trying to um, put more women in the trades, and that is like the literal bottom of the 5 gallon bucket. This is something that's been going on for like our whole lives and our parents' whole lives. So like it's very low bar. It's like the bar is on the ground. So I have this year coming up. This is the first year that I have more on paper. I have accepted more women than men in my program. And when that happened, I was like, oh gosh, like what's going to happen? Because I don't have enough private firms that can even imagine hiring someone who is not a male
Mhm.
bodied person. Um, it doesn't mean that they're any less skilled. I've had extremely enthusiastic applicants that say, wow, this is exactly what I need. This is what I've hoped for. But for me, I have to be, I kind of like look at everyone and say, you really have to like choose where you want to go and really try because there is just such still from employers, they just won't give someone who doesn't look like a regular construction worker dude a shot, and that's really it. I have very high achieving young women, and I have like young men with a pulse, and they're like, "Give me the guy with the pulse." It's like very like it's still kind of silly like that. So for me, I want to make sure, and being in New York, that I'm not oversaturating different private companies that I try to, kind of knock on their door over and over again. I'm always looking if the city is hiring for different programs. I'm looking to see if uh, really responsible private restoration firms are hiring at entry level positions. And we do have some really good union options. Like I said, we're a direct entry for DC9 and I've had a lot of success. One of my students from last year, she just got into Local 1 plumbers. Um, and that's great. And so the plumbers and also sheet metal 28 have had just a better history of having more women in their ranks. So I think that it's worked out for me because I've been able to sort of push them in that direction. Are they specifically preservation? No. But my hope is that someone that comes through a program that is historic preservation focused, they're doing everything with their preservation safety glasses on so that they know if I'm a plumber in a historic home or a historic building, I have to work like this. This is what I'm going to do. You know, if I'm a sheet metal worker in, you know, this type of building that has different constraints as a historic property, this is how I'm going to do my work. So to me, yes, I want everyone to get into historic preservation, but I do understand that that can mean many different things for different people. Also, this is my soapbox. Success for me means that no one got hurt. That's it. Success for me means no one got hurt. And I am frightened to even say it out loud because I try not to speak about it.
Yeah.
But it is dangerous, especially when you're just starting out with new people who you don't know. Literally, like the first day that I hand someone a grinder, I really have to put the fear of God in them because I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want them to get hurt. So it's really success is doing something for 10 weeks up on scaffolding and everyone is like, yep, that's fine. I have all my fingers. Wonderful. That to me
And
is success.
yeah. And to your point, Neela, a lot of people approach programs that if everybody doesn't get into preservation, it's a failure. And again, looking at other programs, that's just not the truth. Sometimes this isn't the right career for somebody. There aren't options. They don't like it, like, or they don't necessarily even have the skills. And, how you define your program success can, not just be that. There's a lot more that can be success. And even if two people come out of it as preservationists, you might have built a whole bunch of allies and interested people that can help later on too and understand, support, and advocate for it. So I think, yeah, really think about what does success mean in your programs, and not just tie it to specifically producing a 1-for-1 ratio of preservationists.
Yeah, and for me, it's also about building a network. I'm talking to young adults that, maybe they didn't have a sort of experience where they can meet someone who might serve as a reference or meet someone that might be able to introduce them to someone who's working in a job that they might want. So for me, I just got a old student of mine sent me an email about being a reference. He's buying an apartment. I was like, this is my definition of success. This will never happen to me, but I'm glad it happened to you. So will I speak to a co-op board on your behalf? Absolutely. Have I spoken to the parole boards too? Yes, I have. I can do either thing. But like to me, being able to like have a professional relationship with someone to be able to vouch for them because sometimes that's just the difference between someone getting ahead or getting a job is just being able to someone having a reference. So I think exposing my students not just to myself but to many different people in the field so that they can collect business cards, they can get in the habit of advocating for themselves and asking for the help that they might need.
I think that's such a crucial point, and I think probably everyone that's part of this program can talk about the reasons why they've gotten jobs or not. I can say personally, so much of it has to do with the people that you know, the reasons why you know them, but being having reliable references is crucial, and at the same time, even if people are not working in preservation specifically, almost everyone that works in some form of contracting will deal with existing buildings at some point in their careers. And so having the terminology, having the mindset that that this is work that has survived to this point, that it deserves a level of care, that they've been trained to understand that level of care, even if that's not something that they'll provide on their own. Those are so important to have out in the field, and it makes all the work better. Our last myth here, and Neela, you touched on this a little bit. The idea that diversifying our pre-apprentices will make the field more diverse in turn. that's a part of the equation here. But you mentioned this past year that it's the first that you have more women than men as part of your teaching cohort, and that you worry about where these apprentices will wind up. That's part of the equation here is to our success rate or however you want to determine that. Um, can you talk a little bit more about that, Neela?
Yeah, I think for better or worse, people see applicants see me and they think, oh, Neela's there. Let me try to. She's a woman. She might be a queer woman of color that I could apply to this program, and I could at least be taught by someone who might teach a little differently than if I was presenting it or had a different life experience. It's not completely guaranteed, but that's the thought. And I think that's why I just get more applicants as the years have gone by who identify as women. And from the one hand, it's absolutely fabulous and I love it. And it is such a joy to have a really balanced class because then the the apprentices are teaching each other, they're learning from each other, they're getting different experiences, different backgrounds, making they're speaking to other people who are their own age outside with real words. It's important. But when it comes to finding a spot in the workforce that might be open to hiring someone that is very different from their usual worker or entry level worker, it takes sometimes I'm on the phone being like, no, 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 she can really do it. Just give her a chance. And it is hard. It's hard. And I also have had students last year. I had three trans students, and I've had students that have had interviews at small businesses that I have trusted, and they come back and say, I don't think you should send your queer students there anymore because of the experience that I have. And then I have to write a little note to myself and say, they're not on my okay list anymore, and I don't recommend students to them anymore. Um, but on the one hand, I'm sort of glad that I can be very transparent with my students, and they come back to me and speak to me and say, hey, that didn't go well, which is important. But I think that's why, for me, I'm always trying to engage with both unions and small business owners from the beginning so that I can sort of work my backwards psychology with them and be like, see, look at these are who's applying. This is just going to keep on happening more. And all of these different people think that your job is so fascinating and so wonderful, and they want to do it too. Um, so it can be very frustrating at times, but the quicker that the people who have these jobs in these companies understand that they're not going to lose anything by hiring someone who might be different than their usual hire. They might gain something really important, and I think it's endemic in the whole construction industry. And I think I really applaud places like non-traditional employment for women, new in New York City. They've been around for almost 40 years, and they have direct entry in places like Con Edison and the MTA, and that's why you see really good representation in different unions like the transit workers and Con Edison. It's because they've had those direct entry programs. So um, yeah, so it's very frustrating at times because I do have a really diverse class, but again and again, the folks that are most successful and in the more traditional paths are not the folks that are very diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a tough one because there's a there's a culture in construction and it's very pervasive. It could be top down, it can also be bottom up. And we're contending in that as much as we want to think we're separate, we are a function of the construction industry. There's so much overlap. And the one of the number one predictors of if somebody will get into a field is seeing somebody else that looks like them in that field. So we have a horrible chicken egg of when you don't see enough people there that look like you, you're less likely to go in. I think you said this earlier, Neela. Construction industry is the lowest industry employer of women, like 10% and even less in the actual trade side. Conversely, it actually represents pretty well the like race and ethnic demographics of the United States, but only in the trades positions, not in management positions too. So even when you're looking at who's making decisions, how do you set company culture and things like that, you're not going to have that at top level decision making. Um, it's, yeah, it's just very tough. And we're trying to look at resources to help um, in pre-apprenticeships to retain people. There are a few things that are very proven that you can help do. And I think it's if you're looking at this in program design, we talk about again these pipelines, but I'm always like, okay, well, where are your pipelines leaky? Where are you losing these qualified people who come in and do the training and want to work? And where do you lose them? And a lot of the times it's in that job placement or even in a program if they're not feeling supported. And so mentorships are huge. That's a great way of getting people to stay in, having some type of network group. If you can have it the affinity base is very helpful. We set up, women in trades networking group here. And it was a really nice outlet for people to network, talk to each other, and just think about like, how can we get through this together? Having somebody to do check-ins and just make sure they have the resources that they need. Um, and just literally check in, having somebody do that improve retention from like 40 to 80%. So those are some small things that'll at least help on the training side and help us get some more people through and feel supported. So when times get tough, there's something to at least fall back on, encourage them to stay in. I don't really have good ideas for the top level cultural problems that we have to contend with, but I think it's like anything, we just have to keep at it and keep trying to do better because as small as the number of women in construction, it is increasing. Little by little, it is increasing.
Well, and if this program is any indication of that, it's wonderful to see that different voices being uplifted in this conversation, and hopefully there'll be more programs like this with different faces and different identities. The idea is that we approach this from lots of different perspectives. And with that all said, we're coming towards the end of our hour here, and we were very cognizant about not trying to have a prescriptive program. There are a lot of challenges to running trades apprenticeship programs and also so many wonderful opportunities that go with that. And so we wanted to be very clear about not saying this is what you need to do, but more through the trial and error of running programs like this, what are some things to consider or to look out for that'll be really important to creating success within your own programs and partnerships? Um, I won't go ahead and read these. I bolded some of these meme points for each of these, but we do have some questions in our queue. I encourage anyone that has a lingering question, please make sure to put it in our Q&A function. But I have two from Brianna Jordan, who's at Providence Preservation Society, and that we might go a little bit over. So if you have to go, I understand, but if you can stay. The first one here is specifically for Natalie. Can you talk a bit about the instructor training program with the campaign and how that functions?
Yes, I would love to. We actually have one of the trainings coming up at the end of the July. It'll be at the Samuel Buford Woodworking Institute. So if there's some after follow-up, I can share the link for that. It's very much about hands-on instruction, not necessarily about the trades itself. So we were looking for people who are already skilled in their trade that want to be a better teacher. And so it's about the pedagogy and how you set up that classroom for learning. Most succinct way to say it is usually we're very used to the sage on the stage. So somebody lecturing at you or the tradesperson just demonstrating, be like, here, now you try. We're trying to switch that to the guide on the side. And so how do you set up them to experiment and learn and fail comfortably and think about it and figure out what to do? And it's a lot of work, but it's a wonderful class. We worked with Toponexus on it. They're an experiential education designer, and they've worked with other groups too, like a welding program at a community college. Fantastic. So if I have a chance, I'll send that link out.
That'd be great. And another question from Brianna, we have, are there steps you recommend before jumping into creating a registered apprenticeship, like a job market feasibility study? Maybe Neela, I'll put this to you for Greenwood's program. Like, what was the kind of initial stages before you opened up your program?
Well, the initial stages was kind of baptism by fire. Like it was like, you're gonna do this,
Yeah.
Neela. So I was like, great. But I think because Woodlawn had already done it for a few years, I really pumped the brakes and I was like, I'm gonna talk to a lot of people before I do this. And I tried to talk to not just the folks at Woodlawn who had been doing it for 2 years, but also I talked to other people in private practice about what they want in a new hire. I talked to folks at Central Parks Conservancy about, different what their hiring practices were for their summer internships, just to kind of see what was out there and to see what we could do or support for us. So it was important to kind of understand where where the students might go, and the union piece of it is very big in New York to making sure that you know, a lot of it has to do with me showing a student how to mix mortar, but a lot of it is me sitting next to a student while we go on the internet on a desktop computer and look at different job listings and me translating what that means, not because the student doesn't understand English, because they don't understand what it means when a masonry company says, I need this, this, and this in a person on a weird Indeed or Monster kind of page like that. So trying to kind of make sure all the students understand the jargon and also know how to talk about themselves in a way that is that shows the employer, oh, this is a construction worker. This person knows already. Come on, let's go.
Mhm. Natalie, is there anything you wanted to add to that? I imagine you're
Um,
advising
yeah.
for new programs quite often. Are there any like typical kinds of studies or analysis that people do to figure out the best way to position their programs in the market?
Yeah, yeah. I have a few of the links shared too. So again, if we have
Okay,
some
great.
after, I'll share out some of the studies. But especially for apprenticeships, it's all job based. And if you do a registered apprenticeship, you have to have an employer of record. We have a lot of historic sites that want to do it. I'm like, great. Do you have a journey person? They're like, well, no, that's why we want an apprenticeship. I'm like, well, you can't have an apprentice without a journey person. So I understand your conundrum, but like we have to have somebody that can actually employ a full-time apprentice and has somebody that can train them. So it's really good to understand what is out there. Do you have employers that are available and willing? So I think always starting with who are those employers and what do they need and are they on board for something like this? Or are they just interested in something smaller, something along those lines? So with any type of workforce program, yeah, exactly what they thought. Just try and find the employers, the markets, and then once you have an idea about what you want to do, I think a feasibility study is a really good idea to figure out what, yeah, what's feasible, what can you do, what's your capacity, what will the market bear?
I think that's great. I want to thank everyone. I think we're just 5 minutes over now, so I'm gonna
Not too bad.
stop sharing my screen. And I thank you all for joining us on this Tuesday, Mardi Gras evening, beginning of Ramadan. Happy Lunar New Year. There are a lot of things competing for our attention and thoughtfulness today. So I appreciate you spending the hour with us today. And I hope that this has been useful for this group. I know I've learned a ton through this conversation, and I encourage you all to reach out. You can always contact me at info@hpef.us. We'll be continuing to run programs like this. I'm very lucky to have Neela on my board of directors, and so part of this event came out of conversations that we've had and looking for the future. So we want to be a resource for people out there doing this work. And we are so thankful to Natalie and Neela for sharing their expertise and their insights on this really important topic that we'll all keep working at from our various positions to try and make more opportunities for people to get into preservation trades and to make it viable for them. So thank you everyone for joining us. I look forward to our future discussions, and I want to thank Neela and Natalie again for their time. Thanks everyone,
Thank
and
you
have
for
a
having
wonderful
me.
night.